Okay, we are reviewing the DIY undercoating experience. Now, most people show their car as they're undercoating it. What I want to do is go over my research on undercoating, and I just made a DIY undercoating, and I want to share my experience. It's still drying on the. I have a box chassis frame rails, so it's a box truck frame on an SUV. So I was inspired by this old school wax oil hand pump pressure can. It's metal, so you get better pressure out of it, but they don't make that anymore. It's a British product. They still make a plastic hand pump pressure for wax oil. If you read the reviews, the wax oil solidifies in the rubber extension tube and wouldn't budge. That's exactly the experience I had with my DIY wax oil. I'll get into that more, but essentially I ended up having to paint it on. So that's the main challenge, is getting the right ratio of solvent to wax that you would use. And so then they've done studies on the best wax prevention treatment, wax, and what they find is this petrolatum wax, and then is 90%, and then 10% beeswax. And so that's kind of what I did. I got toilet bowl rings, which is the petrolatum. It's not white, so the white means it's been purified from the I don't know what they're called, like PAH, whatever that stands for, but it's like they're carcinogenic or something. But anyway, so it was, the stuff I used was like yellow. So I had 3 pounds of the petrolatum from the toilet bowl ring, so it's 9 toilet bowl rings, and then I had 1 pound of white paraffin wax from candles. Now, if you buy the wax spray, before I used RP342, and I looked up the materials, the MSDS, and it's, if they sell you the 6-can box, 6 cans is $100 plus shipping, so it's like a bit over $100, but it's only a pound of paraffin wax. So you can buy a pound of paraffin wax for like $5 or less than $5. So here's another DIY where they use a pound of paraffin wax and 2 quarts of mineral spirits. So that's probably the best way to do it, because like I said, I used too much wax. So I was not able to spray it in the hand pump sprayer. Of course, it's a lot of mineral spirits, and what I used was pure gum turpentine, because I like that pure gum turpentine, and I'll get into that later, because that's got an extra benefit to it also that I'm going to mention later on. So then they add the mineral oil. So the petrolatum wax does have mineral oil already in it. And so I did not order mineral oil. I didn't use mineral oil I just use the petrolatum since it's already got mineral oil. So you want the mineral oil so the wax creeps. It spreads out on its own. Now the problem with this is that when I use the RP342, it dries hard, and the nice thing about drying hard is that it does not attract dirt. But at least not as much dirt. I just looked and I could see dirt on the wax that I had spread before, so I guess that's the RP342. And you can get that black also, which is nice. I like black because it's the wax, the petrolatum is a amber color. And so a lot of these wax sprays are amber color, which leads me to believe they are using petrolatum. Like the RP342, the Cosmoline, that's amber color normally, if it's not black. The problem with that is the amber color looks like it's the same color as rust. So a lot of people say, well, you want to be able to see the rust underneath, but the thing is if you're spraying amber color, then how do you know? It looks like rust to me, so that's why I want black. Okay, so these are the different. Now, if you were to buy a wax undercoating product, these are the different products I came across. I've already mentioned the Cosmoline RP342, and that's what the military uses when they're transporting vehicles overseas or different parts. And you have to buy that direct online. They have a website. It's out of Illinois. And then I already mentioned the wax oil right here. And then you have several others. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's like 11 different paraffin wax products. Like I said, some of those might be petrolatum. There might be petrolatum mixed in. And it's kind of hard to tell from the material safety data sheet, the MSDS. Sometimes they don't specify. Another safety factor, I didn't know about this, but obviously that makes sense, that if you have the wax coating on the frame or where you're putting the jack on and that slips off the frame, so you got to be careful about that. Now, I have not used the lanolin wool wax products, but a nice thing is they do offer fluid film now in black, and that's the most well-known lanolin spray. The problem is it drips a lot and it also smells, but I don't mind a farm smell. I like farm smell. So I'm going to try that out next, and I'm going to spray that inside the chassis box frame because it creeps a lot better than the wax. And I definitely need something that creeps inside the frame because I just filled the frame with phosphoric acid to make sure I converted all the rust in there, and I used the boroscope, and so now it's all has the phosphoric iron, the ferrous phosphate or whatever it is, white, just a white coating. So I'm pretty happy about that I converted the rust on the inside of the frame, because that's what they always say, is that the frame rusts from the inside out. So now I just need to spray in that black fluid film. I'm pretty excited to try that out. Now they do offer this surface shield that's sold at Harbor Freight. It's cheaper than the fluid film, but it's not sold in black, although it does have petroleum distillates in it, so it's already like a black color to it. It also does not smell as bad. It maybe doesn't creep as well. And so I don't know, maybe I'll get that instead, but the other thing is you want to make sure you have a good spray nozzle to get inside the box frame. And so the fluid film that comes with the straw, but you can also get a WD-40 Easy Spray. If you buy one of those, you can take the Easy Spray top off the WD-40, and then you should be able to attach it to the fluid film or the surface shield, and that'll give you 8 inches of flexible spray hose to make sure you really get good coverage inside the box frame. So I'll try that out and see if that Easy Spray nozzle, if it fits, which one it fits on, the surface shield or the fluid film. So not sure, maybe just try one of each, just see how it goes. They don't sell the wool wax in retail locally, so I probably won't be trying that, but that's a thicker lanolin, so that's a real good one, because the problem with the fluid film, if you spray it on the underbody itself, it washes off pretty easily. And the other thing is, they say, well, it will like soften up the wax and sort of like break up the wax. So they kind of recommend not to use it on GM frames, because GM frames are waxed out of the factory. On the other hand, if you look at the safety data sheet of fluid film, it says it already is paraffin wax is in it. So the fluid film, the lanolin might be just sort of a marketing thing. We don't know. It's hard to tell. Maybe it's like half lanolin and half paraffin wax. So, and then I got some quotes that like they use the wool wax or the lanolin. They use that in Europe, in Scandinavia, in Norway. So the other main undercoat product that's used is mineral oil. And basically, as I already mentioned, the petrolatum wax is mineral oil. So that's petrolatum wax is basically petroleum jelly, like Vaseline. So there's a company that's pretty close by. They have a truck that will come and they'll drive your car onto their trailer. So their trailer will pull up to your house, and then they'll spray this New Hampshire oil undercoating, which is the mineral oil. The problem is that because it's mineral oil, it creeps really well if you want to get it in all your doors and rocker panels and all that. But it also washes off easier. And so that's what there's a franchise called Crown out of Canada, and they also use mineral oil. And you can buy this Penetrol, which is a British mineral oil. And if you use mineral oil, you can buy a gallon of mineral oil that's food grade, and that will, or farm, like horse veterinarian or whatever. You can use that in a spray bottle, the pump spray bottle. It'll work. There's videos of that on YouTube, so that's a nice thing about it. The problem is, again, it drips off really easily. It washes off easy. It's a gooey, sticky mess. Never dries. But if you want, it's important to have the creep. So if you want the creep, to make sure you have the creep, to make sure it covers everything, then you want to use the mineral oil. So that's why most of these products have mineral oil mixed in. So these are the various mineral oil-based products that are commercially available. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so moving right along. So we just did the mineral oil and the lanolin and the paraffin wax, and that leaves us with the petroleum jelly paraffin wax mix. Now that's what I did when I made my DIY, because like I said, the petrolatum wax is actually a type of petroleum jelly. And these get rated the best for being the most effective for blocking rust. But the petrolatum's softer because it has mineral oil in it, so it creeps better than just paraffin wax or beeswax. Now, this is what the GM frame has on it out of the factory. This Knox rust out of Illinois is what they dip the frames in, and that is this same. It's the most effective mix. Problem is that it does dry out after a few years and starts flaking off, and then it thins out, and so the water gets through it. So then once the water gets through it, then you start getting the rust. And if people don't know that, then if they don't start treating their frame after a few years, then all of a sudden their frame's just rusting away, and they don't realize that. That's what happened with our frame, because I didn't know it, and I didn't own the car at that point. I didn't control the car or whatever. So it turns out that there is a local aerosol spray that's sold that does have this petrolatum wax or petroleum jelly as the main component, and that's called the Stable Rust Stopper, and it is the cheapest you can find. The only thing is it's not black. It's that same amber color, which is that slight orange color, which is the same color as rust. So it's like you're spraying something, it looks like rust on your car when you're trying to stop the rust, which to me is pretty annoying because you don't want to be looking at something that looks like rust and you don't know if it's rust or not, So what I did is I used black pepper for pigment. I actually bought black pepper powder, and it was real expensive where I bought it, but I'm sure I could have found it cheaper, but it kind of worked. It didn't really work that well. You're supposed to get graphite. You have to special order graphite, and I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to special order it, I actually bought some graphite at the DIY store, but it's like a super tiny amount, so it's really doesn't do anything. So I ended up just using that black pepper powder. And let's see. So this Corrosion XHD, it's the same kind of stuff as the Stable Rust Stopper, only it's like twice as much. Or maybe not twice as much, but 50% more. So here's a photo of that petrolatum jelly wax that eventually flakes off and you get rust underneath it. You can't really see it, but... And so what most people do is they just use paint. Sometimes they'll get these rubberized undercoating where there's a chain that does that, Z-Bart. I actually went to Z-Bart and I did not want the rubberized coating, but they say they do a rust conversion before they spray your car with the rubberized coating. So I said, okay, I just want the rust conversion. And they thought I was crazy, but they did it, and they were pissed off about it. So they completely sprayed my car with rust conversion. Well, it turns out it wasn't even phosphoric acid. It was just like it was a weaker acid. Maybe oxalic acid, but it hardly did any rust conversion at all. So they would, and then, so most, there's videos online where they say do not get that rubberized undercoating because it will destroy your car. So I don't know how those chain stores stay in business. I guess some people just don't know, so they get the rubberized undercoating. Another thing is they say like you want to use a zinc primer if you do paint the frame. So I did get a zinc phosphate primer metal just from Rust-Oleum. And I got a can of that, spray can. Another thing they recommend is epoxy paint. And for a real epoxy, it's a two process paint that you have to mix together. But I did find this appliance epoxy spray paint. And they say, well, that's not real epoxy. Well, it actually works really well. It holds up. It has like it's just a thicker paint. It's heavier duty. And the other thing you can use is clear coat paint, which is has like acrylic in it or polyurethane, or I don't know what it is, but they sell another like bed liner paint that's polyurethane paint. I think it's called Raptor. So some people just use that. They'll just use this Raptor paint or whatever. So I don't know. I'll probably just do some more paint too. And of course, you're not supposed to paint on top of the wax treatment. But I don't know. I'm just sort of like, well, the more the better. Like just just cover, as long as it's covered up. Just keep treating it. So this was the recipe I ended up using. I got these wax bowl rings. I actually ended up getting 9 of them, and I melted them in the crock pot. And like I said, it was too thick. This LPS3 paraffin wax, they sell it as a gallon, but it's $100 again. And it does spray, it's 50% mineral spirits. And so you can spray it in a garden sprayer. But the problem is, again, it's this pretty thin wax because it's so much mineral spirits. It's only like 10% paraffin wax. I could click on that, but I don't want to go through the mumbo jumbo. Oh yeah, now I want to get into the mineral oil. So it's mainly still mineral oil and then paraffin wax. So it's like, it creeps, but it comes off easily. So it doesn't last that long. It's expensive. So this CRC corrosion inhibitor, that's a really good mix of, again, paraffin wax and petrolatum wax. But it's expensive, So you get these aerosol cans, but they're like, I don't know, $15 to $20 each. So, Rust Check actually is cheap in Canada. If you go to, it's sold out at Canadian Tire. You can get it for $7 a can or like $8 a can, which is, actually the stuff I can get at this stable stuff is pretty much the same as Rust Check, and that's be about $9 a can. So it's pretty close. So anyway, I did the DIY. It did not really work. I mean, I spread it with I didn't even have a paintbrush to spread it, so I just used whatever I could find to spread it. And the nice thing about the turpentine, I used Pure Gum turpentine, and it turns out that the 2 quarts of turpentine, that has the rosin in it, and there's actually another undercoating paint called Stone Guard undercoating black paint, and rosin is the active ingredient. That's what makes it an undercoating paint, is it has rosin in it. So when you use turpentine as your solvent, you're actually also having this extra undercoating ingredient of the rosin. the pine resin after the turpentine evaporates. And that's what I'm waiting to happen right now. Is I got the car out in the driveway to evaporate off the turpentine. I'm not going to start the car yet because it's like the turpentine can ignite at 95 degrees. The vapors can ignite at 95 Fahrenheit. And of course, they'll just ignite from any spark. I don't want to risk a spark. So that's pretty much it. So that covers the main different types of undercoating, and all the different brands, all the different products. And the last kind is the ideal kind, the most effective kind. But you always have this balance between what dries. If it dries harder, then it collects less dirt. And it's also less gooey. And if you're going to have any mechanic work on your car, then you want to have an undercoating that's not super messy and gooey, because they're going to complain or freak out about it. But it's probably not that big of a deal because they'd rather, if you don't have rust, if you have less rust on your frame, then that's way better than having a mess, to deal with. So you got the petroleum jelly paraffin wax mix, and then you got the mineral oil, and then you got the lanolin wool wax, and then you got the paraffin wax. So those are the four main kinds, and those are all the products that are examples of those four main kinds. So I probably got 50 different products. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So 25 different products, maybe 30. And so that's why I broke them into those four main categories, types of products. And then the fifth product is not technically undercoating. I mean, the rubberized stuff or asphalt, they really, speak out against it now. They're saying it traps water and then it actually makes the rust a lot worse and it'll destroy your frame. So the mechanics say, no, do not use that. Even though there's still some chain stores that are selling it. Oh yeah, the other thing is that there was a recall for the GM wax coating. Oops. Yeah, because they didn't use a proper primer, and the primer is this phosphoric acid zinc. It's only 3% phosphoric acid, but nevertheless, kind of interesting. So that's pretty much it. It's been an interesting experiment. I do not recommend what I did. It was super messy. It did not spray in the pump sprayer. Some people use air compressors, but even then that wax will still not spray if it's too thick, So then when you thin it out, you end up using the same amount that you would buy. You could buy $100 worth, or you'd have to buy so much mineral spirits because the ratio is 2 quarts per pound of paraffin wax. it's pretty much the same cost as buying it commercial, you know. So there's really no point in making your own, is what I'm trying to get at, unless you spread it with a paintbrush, which is messy and slow, and it's not very effective because you can't get it in all the, you can't spray it. So anyway, it was an interesting experiment, and I learned a lot. And maybe I will do a video on the frame if it turns out interesting, like the way if it dries harder. If it turns out dries harder, that'd be kind of interesting. If it's not sticky and tacky, but I'm expecting it to stay sticky and tacky, which is kind of a pain. So it'll collect dirt. It's going to be a mess, but I don't know. Maybe it'll dry harder. That's pretty much it.